All right, thank you very much, Chair, for your brilliant introduction. This evening, we are here to continue with our radio lecture series on EDC 111, the school curriculum, social change and national development. I'm quite privileged to have with me in this studio Miss MIRIAM OGAH to help me do this very discussion. Remember, if you are in level 100 and you are reading this course, we are saying that, like we normally say in the lecture theaters, the radio lecture is equally compulsory, and that every student should endeavor to at least pay attention to whatever we are going to discuss. Sometimes we need to alert our students that it is not everything that we say in the radio that we repeat. So though we may mention some of the things in passing, but when we come to the radio, whatever we say is an extension of what we have started in the classroom with you this evening. As far as today's presentation is concerned, we are going to look at the criteria for selecting the various components of the school curriculum. Remember, in our previous meetings, we've been talking about the components of the school curriculum, and we did mention that as far as the level 100 students is concerned, the level 100 course is concerned, we are looking at just an introductory aspect, and that is why we did not delve much into the components. We just limited the discourse to only 4 of the components, and that is why we termed it the basic component of the school curriculum, which implies that there are other components that you meet in your life. Maybe when you come back for MPhil or a PhD or something, you may meet other components. Or even when you are doing an extension of this very course in your department, you are likely to come into contact with some of these other components that we failed to capture in this discussion. So, Ms. MIRIAM, I think that today we have to deal with the criteria. We mentioned that there are objectives that our students know what it means. We said the objectives are the purpose, the content, and the learning, the aim, the goals, and the objectives. We said we have content, learning experience, and evaluation. How do we select them? If you can do a quick review of last meeting's presentation, then we can zoom into, because I believe they cannot just know the sources when we have not operationalize or contextualize it within the purview that they need to know these things.
Okay. All right, so thank you very much. Our cherished listeners and viewers, especially our level 100 students, like we rightly mentioned. Yes, before we delve into today's discussion, which is on criteria for selecting components of the curriculum, particularly objectives and then content. All right, so before this very topic, we treated with our students during face-to-face, and I think on the radio lecture last week, we looked at the components of the curriculum. So we mentioned that there are several components of the curriculum, but for the level we are dealing with, our emphasis will be on 4 basic ones, which means that to develop any curriculum or course, we need to identify at least these 4 features that we are about to mention. So we have the statement of purpose, or the purpose, which is also known as the aims, the goals, or the objectives. And then we have the content, otherwise known as the subject matter. We have the learning experiences, or the methods, the methodology, and then evaluation. So we said the purpose is also known as the why of the curriculum, the content being the what, the learning experiences being the how, and then evaluation being to what extent. Now, our students need to know that when it comes to these components, we don't close our eyes and pray to receive revelation or divination as to what to conceptualize as a content or what to put in the curriculum as a learning experience. There are certain things that we need to consider, and so that is what we're going to treat today, the criteria. If we talk about criteria, we can explain it to mean a standard or a benchmark that is used to make decisions about that is used to make a decision about something. So criteria here happens to be the benchmark or the standard that we will look at some of them. How various components of the curriculum or elements interact. So what and what do we use? What benchmark are we going to use, or what standard are we going to set by way of a content, by way of a learning experience, by way of an aim, a goal, or an objective? And so basically the whole topic that we're going to treat today is about what? The standards, the criteria, or the benchmarks that we can use to make a decision about a curriculum component. All right.
All right. Thank you very much. And so we want to begin from our program objectives. Program objectives. And usually these are the behaviors that you expect learners to demonstrate after teaching and learning has occurred. So you go to class, you have taught a particular lesson. You cannot just pick your bag and go and that is it. No. There is always a target that after the lesson has ended, these are the behaviors that I expect my students to demonstrate. And so if, for instance, you are teaching English, you can say, given a passage from the textbook, student will be able to read with 80% proficiency. So given a passage, meaning that you went to class to teach about passage.
Sure.
The lesson has ended, and you expect that once you give the learner a passage, you should be able to read. Not just reading, but there is a standard, and that is why you said 80%. So that if somebody reads below the 80% standard or benchmark, it means you have not achieved your objective.
Sure.
Now, if you are teaching mathematics, by the end of the lesson, or giving counters, a student should be able to add 1 plus 1. So when the lesson ends, you expect that once you put counters on the table, the student should be able to add 1 plus 1. So the kind of behavior that you expect your learners to demonstrate after a teaching and learning interaction has occurred is what we usually term as objectives. I remember in our classroom interactions, we mentioned that when we say objectives, it's not always the case that you may have them in just measuring the cognitive or the intellectual abilities of the learner. I.e., it is not always the case that the learner should be able to read, the learner should be able to mention, the learner should be able to state. There are instances where some objectives will measure the affective domain of the learner or the emotional objective as well. And so when, for instance, learners will be able to show compassion to the needy in class, that is emotional one, because this one you are not going to use your mind or you are not going to use any other thing. Then we have physical or psychomotor objectives, and usually those in the arts and so home economics, hypers and all that. You go to class and you teach. And so those physical or psychomotor objectives are those that target skill development as intended outcome. So by the end of the lesson, the student should be able to ride a bicycle. This is a skill you want the learner to imbibe. The learner should be able to climb a mountain. The learner should be able to jump and all that. So as far as objectives are concerned, we mentioned in class that we have intellectual or cognitive objectives, we have emotional or affective objectives, and we have physical or psychomotor objectives. Now, the next question that comes to mind, for which I'm going to deal with it with Madam, is, so how do we select, or how do we even evaluate? Not just the selection. Sometimes you go to class and you are a circuit supervisor. A teacher has written his or her own objectives. How do you conclude that these objectives are faulty? As a teacher too, you are going to write your objectives. How do you ensure that these objectives are good or they are not good? And so the first criterion has to do with, you said objectives should identify learning outcomes.
Yeah.
Yes, madam. What does this mean?
Okay, so thank you very much. I believe when we were looking at the components, we did mention that in the school curriculum, when we take the statement of purpose, it has to do with the aims, goals, and objectives, and we looked at the difference between the three. So when we are mentioning, yes, we've settled on objectives, but of course our students know that it is the aims that we have reduced to objectives. Now we establish with them that objectives are of 3 types in the school curriculum. We mentioned that we have cognitive or intellectual objectives, we have emotional or affective objectives, and then psychomotor or physical objectives. And so in that regard, when we are planning the curriculum, we need to ensure that the objectives in the curriculum identify the kind of learning outcomes, because as far as the learners' cognitive, affective, psychomotor domains are concerned, they're going to learn. They are going to gain experiences, values, skills, etc. And so we should be specific in selecting or evaluating our objectives, such that if the attempt is to introduce students to an experience, a behavior, a skill that targets the affective domain, we should be explicit on that. If it is about the cognitive domain, the psychomotor domain, so basically the kind of objective that you want to effect, the kind of learning that you want to take place on the part of the student, the curriculum should, or the objective should identify it.
All right, thank you very much. And then beside also that, the objectives should be consistent with curriculum aims. Every curriculum, like we told them, curriculum would always come with its own aims.
Sure.
These aims, when you are formulating objective, you don't just formulate an objective in isolation. You have to look at the aims of that particular curriculum. So let's take it that learners would appreciate cultural diversities in Ghana. That is your aim. Now, how do you formulate an objective that would not help the learners to appreciate cultural objectives? We're saying that there should always be that relationship between your objective and that very aim. Learners would show respect. Now, whenever our learners would appreciate the democracy we are enjoying in Ghana, it means that whatever objective that you formulate in your lesson note or your learning plan should help in the achievement of this stated aim. If not, so you formulate an aim and the aim is not, the objective is not in consonance with the curriculum aims, then you are not helping the learner to become who the society expects. So always there should be that relationship between the kind of aim you have, the kind of objective you have formulated, and the aims of the curriculum or the national expectation of the subject or the lesson that you are going to teach. So, madam, objectives must be precise.
Yeah. So we have precision or specificity as one of the criteria for selecting or evaluating objectives. So by being precise or being specific, we need to state exactly what we want to achieve. Exactly what we want to achieve. So as our students will progress, we realize that by the end of the lesson, students will be able to maybe draw the grass cutter and label the parts. What exactly do you want them to do? So on daily basis, our students are going to set their objectives. This evening, we have an objective. And I think right from the beginning of the radio lecture, we mentioned that our aim here in the next 1 hour, 30 minutes is to have a discussion on criteria for selecting program objectives and content. So as far as preciseness or precision and specificity is concerned, that is what we want to achieve by the end of the lesson. And so the objectives in the curriculum, there are not things that we can achieve all of them within a day. So we need to break it down. So on weekly basis or whenever we have interactions with the students, there's that thing that we want to leave the learning environment with. By the time we hope to leave the learning environment the students achieve, we need to be explicit on that.
So I asked this question in class. You are going to teach home economics class and you say by the end of the lesson, the student should be able to bake a cake. The lesson ends, the learner has baked the cake, but the cake is bent.
Okay.
Now, is the learner wrong or right? That is where the element of precision comes in. So whatever you should be, I like the term you used, you should be very explicit, the kind of behavior you want to see. By the end of the lesson, the student should be able to write a sentence. The lesson ends. The learner picks the exercise book and writes, Jesus wept. It is a sentence. Maybe you expected the learner to just go beyond that.
That, yeah.
Yes. So you need to be very precise with whatever you want to see. By the end of the lesson, the student should be able to jump. The lesson ends, the student jumps, but into a galamsey pit. It is still what? Jump. So you need to be very clear about whatever you expect to see after the lesson has ended. If not, you may teach, the lesson ends, and the learner has done something. And yes. And the next question the student asks is, so what if all the students are not able to do it? And I said, no. We are not saying that if you have 10 importance of the national constitution, you should say the students should be able to mention or state all the 10. But at least you look at the average. Averagely, what should a learner, of course, we have those intellectually higher and all that, but what should be the minimum that at least every learner in your class be able to do? So that is precision.
Yeah.
And then measurability. So precision and measurability comes together. I don't know if...
Yeah, so we are looking at measurability. We need to demonstrate the extent to which the objectives we set have been met. If we talk about objectives being measurable, you see, let's look at it from this concept. I believe that the shirt you are wearing this moment, I'm sure that the tailor or the dressmaker who got it for you has your measurement.
Yes.
And so when the tailor began taking your measurement, you realize that he just assigned numbers to parts of your body. So your waist, your sleeve length, your trouser length, your bust, and all that. At the end of the day, if we talk about your we have what is it the home economics people or the science people use, BMI, the body mass index or something. So numbers basically, at the end of the day, in the curriculum or when we teach, we should be able to measure. We can't say here, sit on this platform and say that by the end of the radio lecture, our students will know objectives, criteria, know what kind of objectives and content. No, the exact thing that we want them to know, at the end of the day, we measure it. The objectives that we set in the curriculum, we identify. Learners should be able to do 1, 2, 3. I like it when you mentioned that the issue of constitution, maybe 10 of them. So at the end of the day, you need to conduct an evaluation, do an evaluation, an assessment to find out whether the learner can mention the 10 or the 5 or the 3. So when you are marking the exercise and then you draw, you draw, let me put it that way, you draw a long stroke, then you write under it, sin. What have you you've not measured.
Yeah.
And you see, I don't know whether the school you attended in those days you witnessed some, especially correction exercise. When you get something wrong, you do the correction, then sin. You've not measured. It's supposed to be 1. We are talking about assigning numbers. So objectives 2 out of 2, 5 out of 20. Quizzes, end of semester, our students are writing. When we give their scripts to them, we don't write anything like sin, good, and all those things. We try to assign numbers so that at the end of the day, we can measure that our students' performance is this on an average, is that and that. And so when it comes to objectives being measurable, we need to demonstrate the extent to which the objectives have been met. We shouldn't forget the fact that the extent to which. So even if they did well, it was average, it was that. There should
How do you determine?
How do you determine? Yes, they did very well because if the pass mark is 50, a good number of students scored between 50 and 100. The statistics is there. So our students need to bear in mind, sin, acknowledge, and know they should do the measure.
Yes.
So that is why I brought that concept of
tillers
and for them to get
that's
to know
very
that.
good. Yeah. So like when I try to explain the meaning of objectives, and I give an example that given a passage from the textbook, student will be able to read with 80% proficiency.
Yes.
I didn't just say the student will be able to read with proficiency. So at what point will I determine that this one is proficient?
How do you even measure that?
Yes. So it is always good. So I always say that more or less, those days teachers were asked to write at least. At least. But now we said no. You need to be precise. That if it is 4, and nobody forces you to write the number of objectives to be achieved. You can go and teach a particular lesson, and in that lesson, you have only one objective. You can have 2 objectives. It depends on the kinds of learners that you... So many factors come to play. And I'm sure we are going to talk about feasibility, and we will talk about some of these things. Yes. So, Madam, objectives must be feasible.
Yes. So, feasibility criterion relates to availability of resources and time. We cannot be overambitious such that we try to put everything together. The objectives in the school curriculum, we need to be aware of the duration of the program. At the end of the day, if it's at the classroom level, the number of objectives you set or whatever you want to achieve, you need to look at the time available. Is the duration for the lesson 1 hour, 2 hours? Look at the school climate, the culture.
The resources.
Is it when everybody is about vacating and going home? That is why you are going to introduce a new topic. You have to look at all these things. In addition to that, do you have the necessary resources, both human and material resources, to achieve the objective? The objectives will only be feasible if you set objectives by way of on a course outline, or you prepare a lesson note, and then you go to school and that day maybe a program, there's a program, a national program or whatever. Are you still going to teach objectives to who? The table and chairs? No. So first of all, you need to have a real look at the resources, the materials that will aid you in your teaching. That is why we began with the curriculum ties, and we mentioned the support curriculum, which has to do with the resources. So the necessary resources that we need, both human and material resources, in addition to time, so that we can teach or introduce learners to that objective, is very, very important. So feasibility criterion, simply put, has to do with paying attention to available resources and then the time that we have to introduce or teach that particular objective.
So and just to add a little, feasibility will also look at, it's more or less like, is it achievable within the stipulated time?
Yes, that is why we said there is time and then resources.
The resources.
So if the resources are not there, if time is not there, how are you going to achieve it?
Even the nature of learners that you have.
Yeah.
Yes. There are some classes that you go and the students, cognitively, they are higher. And so you may have an objective, and if you are not careful, even within the time, you will finish before time.
Yeah.
There are others too, you need to take your time.
You have to continue.
Yeah. That is why you teach and somebody will just be sleeping, wakes up to say the whole show.
The whole show.
And now, maybe if you had wanted to achieve your objective that day, the person says the whole show. Sometimes as teachers too, we need to look at our own competence. Because there are some topics that you go to class and a student poses a question and you are confused. Meanwhile, you have said that by the end of the lesson, I have to achieve A, B, C, D. Even the first one, you are struggling. How much more the second one? So for us to be real, for us to achieve our objectives, at least we need to consider, as you mentioned, all those things before we will know that, oh, as for this objective, once I formulate it, I can achieve it within the time. Then, Madam, we come to the issue of functionality.
Functionality. So, objectives in the curriculum should be functional to the learner as well as to the society. So, we have personal and social functionality. Personal and then social functionality. Anything in the curriculum by way of an objective, anything our students write in their lesson notes or their learning plans as objectives that they want to achieve, we need to consider it at 2 levels. This thing that the students are going to learn, these objectives I'm going to introduce them to, of what importance is it to the learner? And secondly, of what importance will it be or is it to the society? That is why we have social functionality over there. At the end of the day, all these things that we teach, the learner is coming back to society. We shouldn't forget that society happens to be the basis when it comes to determining the curriculum. It's the nature of society that gives birth to whatever we put in the curriculum. So at the end of the day, the learner must come back, try to provide solutions to the challenges that probably Ghana is facing. So anything we put in the curriculum, it should be functional to the learner and then the society. If the learner sees the relevance or appreciates the importance of the objective, at the end of the day, he or she will develop some motivation and want to learn more or know more and live a life that will be meaningful to him or herself, as well as the larger society, the family, and then beyond.
Thank you. And so you have gone to class to teach personal hygiene or hygiene generally. Objectives achieved. By the end of the lesson, the student should be able to define personal hygiene and state the importance of keeping the environment clean. The next moment, you get to school compound and the student just drinks water and dumps it anywhere in the community. It means that though on a personal level, you have achieved the objectives, but as far as moving it into the society, the learner has failed. Or?
Oh, yeah, but this issue is attitudinal. The learner will develop a nice write-up for you on the importance of the personal hygiene, all right. But in terms of it having impact on I don't know whether they cannot, sometimes they find it very difficult to connect the cognitive and then the affective. So like you rightly said, the learner is aware, they'll develop it on paper for you. You mark 100 over 100, you have achieved your objectives. But when it comes to practicing, putting it into practice, it becomes a challenge. So they'll drink the water, they litter everywhere, you go to the lecture hall, and it's all that. So now we are telling, that is why we mentioned from the beginning that the objective should identify the learning outcomes. Sometimes I think that some teachers overstress the cognitive. And at the end of the day, it gives birth to this. So if I'm a teacher and on paper, I've taught the personal hygiene, you go to class and then you see when the students, you realize that they've littered, and you don't ask them to pick those litters, but you stand inside and teach. Then you yourself, you are a problem. How would the students be able to practice all this? They would think that, oh, so all that you were teaching us were for the books. So we need to correct them, direct them. Or when you see that the person handing over the assignment to you, the uniform or the footwear is started, not clean and all that, you direct, go and, change into something that is, before you come and present it, so that they can connect. You just remind them, but we just learned about personal hygiene. Look at the way your uniform is dirty. I'm not saying go and get a new one, but make sure you wash it. You bath 2 or 3 times a day. By so doing, you are trying to let them connect their book knowledge to real life.
And so that is why I said here it could be, or it will mean that you have achieved your personal objective, but in terms of the social, then that is missing. Then the last one has to do with the appropriateness of the objectives. We are saying that we don't just go to the classroom and start teaching. The objectives that you formulate must be within the remit of the kind of learners that you have. You are teaching a child basic 1. By the end of the lesson, the student should be able to write, draw the map of Ghana and indicate all the 16 regions.
That's right.
Yes. There is somebody who was forced to come to school. Yeah, they are bad in it. Sorry for my word. Before the person came. So, is it appropriate? It is not. It cannot be appropriate. You always have to look at what the learners can do and what they cannot do. Nobody is pushing anything on you. That's why I use the 10 importance of the Constitution. That, yes, maybe we have even more than 10. But look at the kind of learners that you have and select objectives that are within what they can do. If not, you may finish and every day you will not achieve your objectives. Or the objectives will be so we come to the issue of learnability, and within a short time you have finished the lesson, you have achieved your objectives. Meanwhile, it is not yet time. It should be pegged at the level of the learners that you are going to deal with.
Yeah. So yes, I think that emphasis here is on the developmental level of the learner. So you look at the age. So whenever I get it, I tell my students that, you see, when we write a lesson note, our teachers indicate the average age, so that any material information you put in that book, the average age speaks of the maturity level of the learners, the developmental level of the learners that the lesson is meant for. So it is always important that we know the level we are dealing with, the kind of examples we use, our choice of words, almost everything that will be appropriate for their developmental strength.
Yes, and it's true, because even in the university, the kind of objectives you may have for level 100 will be different from level 400. That is why sometimes you get to level 400, you pick your quiz paper, a quiz that you wrote in level 100, you look at it and you say, how? Why didn't I get 10 over 10 or 20 over 20?
Yes.
At that stage, that was what you deserved.
Yeah.
In 400, your minds have grown, you are now sharper than the way you came. And so if you are with us, this is Radio Windy Bay 98.3. This evening we are discussing the criteria for selecting the various components of the school curriculum. Let's remind our cherished viewers and listeners that the phone lines remain 0503-923158, 0503-923158. And don't forget, this number doubles as a WhatsApp line and an SMS platform. You can equally join on social media and send your contributions, your comments, and we will be there to read them when the time is due. So, Madam, we are looking at the second aspect of today's presentation, because we were tasked to look at the criteria for selecting objectives and content.
I think.
And so?
Yeah, so content, like we mentioned earlier, it has to do with the subject matter, the what of the curriculum. So the content has to do with the information to be learned, the knowledge, the facts, the concept, principles, and all these things that we learn. So at the end of the day, the content becomes the medium through which we achieve the objectives. Because if you want the learners to mention the elements of government, 3 types or elements of government, then you should introduce them to a type of content or knowledge that at the end of the day, you can indeed say that your students have learned the 3 types of the 3 elements or whatever of government, 3 arms of government. Good. So the content has to do with the subject matter, the knowledge, the skills, the theories, all those things that can be found in the various courses or subjects. If you take integrated science, if you take government, history, sculpture, ceramics, geography, economics, food and nutrition, those things that we learn in them becomes the content.
And so it's rightly so. We said it is the what which you have repeated, whatever it is that students come to the classroom to learn. But here, students shouldn't forget that it is not only about when we were treating the component, we said we have formal content and informal content. So it is not only about the notes you are writing in your books.
Exactly.
But it has to do with what we learn through the core-curriculum and the hidden curriculum. All these come together to form the content. Sure. And I appreciate the fact that you mentioned earlier that the objectives we formulate can be emotional, cognitive, or psychomotor. So the informal content will help you to achieve the emotional or the affective. So sometimes when a teacher comes to class and say, my friend, dress well, pull your pants up, it is still part of the content. It can be measured. But just that we don't stand there to say, oh, when you are dressing, you need to wear your shoe first, you need to color mixing. When you wear this color, but it's all part
color
of
blocking.
Yes. It's all part of the content anyway. And so, how do we select our content, Madam? The first one is significance.
Yes. So significance, we are looking at more or less important.
Yeah.
This thing that you want the students to learn as a theory, as a fact, as a form of knowledge, of what importance is that? So significance criterion has to do with the extent to which that thing the learner is learning in the course or the subject is logically central, such that when it comes to advancing the intellectual repertoire of the learner, when it comes to advancing the discipline, that thing has a contribution to make. Now, you realize that any topic that is listed on a course outline or in a curriculum, any theory, any fact belongs to a discipline. Newton's law of motion, which discipline does it belong to? The physics, the sciences. Law of gravitation, magnetism, sciences. Now, Abraham Maslow's theory of needs. We are moving away from the exact sciences or the natural sciences to where? The social sciences. We talk about civilization, democracy. You are moving into an area. Okay, so everything, every content, every topic that the learner comes across belongs to a particular discipline. Rarely will, of course, there are instances where we try to cross carpets, especially when there's a vast, yes,
appreciated.
But usually we even see it in a unified form. So the possibility that you hear about democracy in social studies, when you go to history, you come to government, you go to Seires, you are likely to meet the word democracy over there, because it all belongs to a body of knowledge or discipline known as what? The social sciences. It's the same way that when you go to the exact sciences, for example, you find a similar trend over there. So what that means is that if you come across a concept, a content, it should be such that because of the multidisciplinary nature of the subjects or courses, you are done with your first degree in history education, you want to proceed to go and read law. You realize that some of the things you learned in history, you are likely to meet them. It means that that content in history is contributing to advancing the discipline that it belongs to. So in that line, we can say that the content is it has met this criterion, the criterion of significance. But if you learn the thing in a subject and you cannot meet it anywhere, in fact, you can't go anywhere else that you can use that topic or fact or theory, then I think that it will not be considered to be included in the curriculum.
All right, thank you very much. So I'll talk about the issue of validity. You know, sometimes you go home and you pull your the kind of subjects that your parents did in school, and you say, oh, this one we are also doing it now.
No.
So I want to take it to school. You take it to school and you see a variation, a different variance. They are totally different from each other, because knowledge expires. Knowledge becomes obsolete in a matter of days. The kind of things we are learning today, I'm not sure it can stand for the next 100 years, the next 1,000 years, and so on and so forth. Yes, of course, there are certain things that no matter what, it will still stay with us. But whenever you are going to teach as a teacher, validity here requires that you make sure what you are going to teach is true, and it will help in the achievement of the purpose that for which you are going to the class. You go to the senior high school, for instance, you pick the social studies textbook, and you still see Ghana has 10 regions in some of the social studies textbook. Assuming you're a teacher and you go to class and you are not able to correct this, but you go to tell them that Ghana has 10 regions, the students will just be looking at your face, because within them, they know we have 16 regions. That is where the issue of validity comes in. So a content is said to be valid when it is authentic, when it is true, and when it will help you to achieve the objectives for which you are going to the classroom.
Yeah.
There are instances where students will say, oh, non-fa here doesn't mean it is not something that it is not that the content is not important. The content is important, but when they compare it to the current trend, they realize that whatever you have taught them today has already expired long time ago. Especially in this time and era where we find ourselves in an AI world, students are given tablets, they come to the classroom with it. And as you are teaching, they may want to compare what you are saying to what the AI is also saying. And if you are not careful, the students will always say that as for you, you teach what is archaic or something, because to them it is not true, it is not authentic. And even though you said that by the end of the lesson the students should be able to mention the 10 regions in Ghana, in actual sense the regions are not 10, but they are what, 16. I don't know if you have anything.
Yeah, I think so. In addition to the content being authentic, true, it should be current.
Yeah.
So that is why we are advised to always
prepare.
Yes, we need to improve on learning. Is unending. When you stop learning, you perish. So don't say you already have the degree, so when you are going to class you just pick your materials and then go. Continue updating yourself, your knowledge, your experiences, your skills on the job that you find yourself doing, so that your students will not be far advanced than you are. And so in addition to being true, you should be current.
Yeah.
You should be current in your subject area.
I don't know if you encounter some of these teachers. They have their notes. As for that note, it's a grandpa. When that book gets lost, you must find it. The whole class must find the book. Because
you call it grandpa. Great, in fact,
ancestral notes. Because to them, that is the Bible.
Yeah.
They always, and forgetting that certain things 5 years ago, for instance, just 2 years ago, we had Afro 15. Last year, 16. This year, we are going to have 17. Next year, 18. So if you are teaching students how to repair mobile phones, and you go to teach them using iPhone 6S, then it means that these students will graduate. By the time they get to the market, whatever they learned is outdated. It's outdated. And that is why I like the term you use, currency. It should be true and it should be current. Because if not, the student will finish, but even before the student finished learning the content, it has expired. So it will not be of any significance to the learner. And that is what will lead us to utility.
Yeah, so with utility, it basically relates to, if the content is significant, or you have established the importance of it, and it is true, it is current, then the next thing is to be able to utilize it. Because we are not learning for passing examination. So utility relates to usefulness of the content, learners' ability to utilize a selected content, either now or in the future. So all the things that we are learning in our various courses, our dear students, it is not about chewing and pouring and passing, getting good grades. You should be able to apply them, use them now or future.
And I think the challenge mostly stems from we the teachers. We teach as if the classroom exists in isolation. We are not able to connect what the learners are learning to the realities of the world. So you go there, you teach marriage, you teach importance of marriage, causes of divorce, but the students get divorced and within a twinkle, it has collapsed. So the utilization of the content has not happened. You teach pi r square, students are confused. What is it? Pythagoras theorem. You teach trigonometry, you teach logarithm. But all this, we are confused because we teach in abstract. But if we are able to teach and bring it to the level of the learners so that whatever you are learning today, this is how you can apply it now, and this is how you can apply it in future, then at least it will help the learners to know, oh, this thing that we are learning, oh, we have been seeing it every day. It has been happening in our days or in our homes. But how do we teach?
Yeah, you are right. You are right. That is why the earlier example you mentioned, you teach the personal hygiene and the student is loitering. The student has acquired, you have achieved your objectives, but the student is unable to apply that content in real life. So our students need to know that all these things, they move hand in hand. We should all continuously connect the objectives, content, learning, experience, they all interact. You can't say you have achieved one and the others you have not. So we need to connect, remind our dear students of that as well.
I think at this point we can
Sure.
activate the phone line.
Sure.
So 0503 923158. 0503 923158. Equally, you can join via our Facebook channel and send your comments, your contributions, and we are here to read them for you.
I don't know whether we can maybe 10 seconds
interlude.
Yes, break. I mean, so that they yes.
All right, thank you very much. We are back. So, Miss Miriam, we are continuing.
I think that probably the studio line is again, so that we remind them that.
Okay, so 0503923158. 0503923158. You can phone in with your questions, your comments, and your contributions. As I said, this evening we are dealing with the issue of the criteria for selecting the various components of the school curriculum. And I've just been prompted that there is a comment from AJAJ. Please, with the goals, aims, and objectives, it's confusing me. Please, can you elaborate on it again? I think we've treated this about 3 times, and today there are other issues that we have to look at. So maybe you can bring it to the lecture theater, and we will try to help you there. So, Miss Miriam, learnability.
Yeah. So learnability, the content as a fourth criteria for selecting a content in the curriculum basically relates to the fact that whatever we put in the curriculum or whatever we intend to teach by way of the knowledge, that theory, that principle, is it learnable? Ask yourself that question. Is it learnable by the students? Because you have already set your objectives, and we spoke about what? Appropriateness of the objectives being within the maturity or the developmental level of the learner. So it is kind to equally maintain that whatever knowledge, content, subject matter you want the students to learn, you ask, this level I'm going to teach, can they learn this content? Course EDC 111, if we take it to primary 5 to JHS, would they be able to, is it learnable by them? So learnability, capabilities and competencies of the learner to learn a selected or chosen content, to learn the material that is being taught. We need to look at the maturity level of the learner to do that. So how to do that? The content should not be too easy. The content, again, should not be overly difficult. If it is too easy, the learner will not be challenged to learn more. If it is overly difficult too, they will be discouraged. They won't even attempt. When you made the example that a primary 1 child should draw the Ghana map and indicate the 16 regions and their capitals, what skill? So yes, is this something that what kind of skill? What do you want to achieve by doing that and memorizing the 16 regions and their capital without looking on anything, I beg, it's going to be very difficult. And so the thing shouldn't be overly difficult such as it will discourage them. There should be that kind of neutrality, balance, so that it will be a bit challenging and a bit easier to do and all that. And so when we are able to assess the previous knowledge of our learners, we can build on it by giving them a content or teaching a content that is within the learner's maturity level.
So sometimes when you even pick a particular content, put yourself in the shoes, pretend as if you are the learner. And a teacher has come and he's teaching this. How long would it take you to achieve this? To grasp the concept that the teacher is teaching? It will help you. You will always have to position yourself in the shoes of the learner in order to understand the content. If you think that, oh, I'm the teacher, so you go and speak some English and everybody is confused in the class because they don't understand it. The content, as you said, shouldn't be too easy and it shouldn't be too difficult. And if it is too difficult or too easy, it may not satisfy the needs and the interest of the learner. So you are going to teach a concept. Would the learner be interested? Does he even need this? Are you teaching because you've been asked to teach it, or you can teach it in a way that will be of interest to the kind of learners that you have? And the last one is feasibility. I'll leave that one to you because I think we spoke about it. I think we have a caller on the line. Hello. We've lost the caller, so we will continue with the discussion whilst we await for other callers and listeners to join the discussion via our Facebook channel or our SMS and WhatsApp platform, as well as our phone-in number 0503923158, 0503923158. And so feasibility, you explained from what we just said from the objectives, that can it be learned within the time allowed? You are going to teach a particular concept. Can it be learned within the time? Now, when you go to the senior high school, a period is 1 hour. You are going to teach a particular concept, logarithm, and you have packed the lesson. Oh, when they solve this, then they will solve this one too. Can it be learned within the stipulated time? Do you have resources to support them? Because when you go and you are talking, they are all confused. Sometimes you need to project for them to see. You need to show video to buttress whatever you are telling them. The expertise of the teacher. As a teacher, look at your own competence. Do I have control of what I'm going to teach? Or is because I woke up 4 a.m. and I chilled it in my head, I'll just go and sing the notes. And when they are singing, nobody interrupts, because the moment you interrupt, everything has gone. Even the nature of the learner that you have in your class. Sometimes you may say that, oh, I want to go and teach this. I can finish this within 30 minutes. But the nature, that learner is not ready to learn that concept within 30 minutes. He may need more than 30 minutes. So all this will come together to ensure that the content that you have selected is either feasible or otherwise. I don't know if you want to add anything.
I think that...
then we go to learning experience. So, madam, learning experience.
So, learning experience, as the third component of the curriculum, we said it's also known as the how of the curriculum. So, if our students are really getting the connection, the why, which is the purpose, what. So, what content are we going to learn? How? How are we going to learn? How are we going to teach, and how are we going to learn the selected forms of knowledge and skills and all those things? So, the learning experience also, we said, is the interactions between the learner and the external conditions in the environment to which they react. That is by Tyler. The methodology, how are we going to? So what criteria are we going to use to select what we want to teach? The how we're going to teach it, the methodology. What criteria? First of all, the kind of activity we engage learners on, which if it's able to contribute to the achievement of our objectives, then we say that that experience is valid. Hence, validity as a criterion in selecting learning experiences. So it should be authentic. you made mention that by the end of the lesson, as an objective, the student will be able to bake. So if you are talking about baking of cake, I think you use cake. Good. And then in the activities that you engage students in, it was about baking meat pie. Will you achieve that objective you have set?
Let me give you a practical example. So you say students will be able to bake a cake. Then we meet you on Monday morning with the students at GASEM. How would GASEM help the students to bake a cake? So any objective should have a relationship with the learning experience that you have formulated. There are instances where as teachers, yes, when your money gets finished, you want to find the excursion and take the students there. But what kind of objective would that excursion or field trip help to achieve?
Yeah, that is if only the intention is because you need some money, then that is it. But if that is not the intention, of course, once it's able to contribute or is able to once that experience or activity leads to the attainment of your objectives, then of course it is valid.
Yeah, so for instance, you are home economics, you want students to bake a cake. We meet you Monday morning and you and the students, you are at the food lab and students have their flour and all that. At least it is helping them to bake a cake. So here we will say that the learning experience is valid.
Or it can still be on that. It's all about baking of cake and then you end up in the lecture hall writing the points on the board or projecting the points, and you said that they should write, if you want to bake this is the recipe, step 1 do this, step 3 do that. It doesn't automatically mean that when they are left alone in the kitchen they can bake a cake. So we should engage them on the practical lesson on that and not a theoretical lesson.
All right, then we come to so Abani Abdul Muntala, how can curriculum designers avoid bias or exclusion when selecting content? I wish we go through the learning experience so that when we finish we can address this and other related questions that may come up. So learning experience should also be comprehensive. Here we are saying that you mentioned the objectives that you have may come in cognitive, affective, and psychomotor. So the kind of learning experience that you select, sometimes we don't just give group work because we feel comfortable in giving group work. So if I say we are going to bake a cake, psychomotor, but in doing so, we are going to use this ingredient. We are talking about cognitive. Then I pair you. In the group, I want you to know how it feels to work with one another. So here, I've developed both the cognitive, the affective, and the psychomotor. But if anytime I come individual group work, write it in your jotter, individual group work, even though I may say that I'm helping you because I want to achieve my objective, you should know that that learning experience is not comprehensive. But I don't know if you want to.
I think that, so basically you have said.
Okay. Then you speak on the issue of variety.
Variety. So the learning experience, the activities, or the method you want to use to teach should cater for the diverse needs of the learners in your class. We should bear in mind that apart from having learners with special needs,
there are footballers.
Exactly.
They are musicians.
Good. So how do we present the content in such a way, the learning experience, the activities that we engage learners on? It should target all these students or learners with different needs in the class. Apart from this, we have learners who are visual learners. So they want to see before they learn, or they believe that indeed they are learning or they have learned something. We have auditory learners, those that hear. So they will prefer the teacher doing all the talking so that they will live. Unless others also see and write notes. Then we have the kind of aesthetic learners, those that will prefer physical, practical, and all this. So we need to bear in mind that all the learners we have in the class, they are all in the same class, primary 6. If we talk about the average age, yes, most of them are 9, 10 years, but they have different learning needs, different learning styles, in addition to learners with special needs. So we need to engage them on activities or interactions that will target or that will meet the individual needs of all the learners that we have. And I don't know, I think today our interpreter from the
Special
education department wasn't able to make it, but I'm sure they will make an arrangement and see how best they will sign to the hearing impaired students. So that is it. We must ensure that we provide activities we engage learners on, target the diverse needs of the learners we have in the learning environment.
So that is why I said you have musicians, you have, because at the secondary school sometimes we forget that these people are there. These days the concentration is on those with special needs, which is very fine. But sometimes you want students to write a sentence. There is a musician in your class. Can that person rap, give a rap using words to form something?
Exactly.
This is somebody, when you say write, he cannot write. But when you say, oh, put it in words verbally, the person can really do it. And you need to ask yourself whether the learning experience is suitable for the level that is intended. Class 1 students, you are teaching them, and you say, oh, as for today, I want us to go to the beach. Is it appropriate for the level it's intended? If it is the master's level and you feel tired and you feel, oh, as for today, I want to take you to the beach, let's go and sit there, have a drink and have a discussion. At the level, master's level, everybody is so mature and it wouldn't send any bad signal. But class 1, class 2, you remember there was this headmaster last year who took the students to the farm.
Yeah.
Whether you are teaching agric or not, the farm may not be considered what? Appropriate. Because the school has a garden, you can utilize it. So sometimes we have to consider, if you want to give group work, is it at the appropriate level of the learners? Class 1 learners, you say, oh, they are doing coloring, they are busy. And you say 5 in a group, discuss this. Discuss what? They cannot discuss anything. You have to discuss it yourself.
You discuss with them.
Yes. So you always, appropriately, you have to consider. That's why you mentioned the developmental stage of the learners. The developmental stage of your learners are very important when you are considering all the criterions that we've discussed so far. But I'm balanced.
Yeah, balance. So there should be balance in terms of the needs of the learner. So the activities that we engage learners on, yes, there should be a balance in that it will serve their needs, the learners' needs, and at the same time, it will serve the demands, the needs, the expectations of the society. So we can have examples. In our class, we have different leadership positions. Leadership doesn't begin at the national level. It is a bottom-up approach. So in class 1, you have a class prefect, you have the blackboard, whatever, those and other leadership positions. Up to the university, course reps, deputy course reps, SRC, executives here and there. At the end of the day, it's the same people that we see them on national platforms, in parliament and then elsewhere. In our various homes, parents are not around, the next elderly person in charge becomes the
yes,
the direct person, the younger siblings you need to report to. And her mother and father is not around and you disobey them, they discipline you. Yeah. So in terms of creating that those positions in school or the curriculum, at the end of the day, the student goes out there, and then in terms of anywhere that he or she finds himself as a leader in the class, as a class prefect, the person knows that he or she has certain responsibilities or roles. In the same line, we can talk about the demands of society. Post-internship. You know that most of our students here are being trained to become teachers. At the end of the day, we don't wait. You don't experience all your teaching training on campus. A time will come, 400 first semester, you go for the internship. Now, once you are all these things, all these practices are meant to prepare you, put you in a better position to be able to teach effectively when finally you are left on your own. By so doing, we are creating a balance between your personal needs. What you need is the certificate. In addition to that, you are coming to serve society. So if we don't allow you to experience what goes on in society, and it's in the same line when we go to the health sector, nurses, doctors, almost every semester they are going for clinical work. So you do a bit in the class, you go to the real life situation. Because of the society that we're going to deal with, we don't train all health professionals in the classroom. Then the first time they get to pass a procedure is when they are posted to a particular hospital. No, because you don't want them to come and then misinform society. So because of the balance between the needs and society, the personal needs of the learner and that of the society, in teaching and learning activities, the interactions that goes on, there should be some that will meet the needs of the learner, and then at the same time the demands of society on that individual. They should be able to juxtapose the two.
So when you over focus on one at the expense of the other, so you select a learning experience. As for the learners, when you leave them every day to play on the field, they will play.
Sure.
They will not get tired. But is that what the society demands? The society has expectations for bringing the awards to the university. If every day there is entertainment, they will call you, the teacher, and ask you, because they are confused. So it is always important that we strike a balance between the needs of the society and the demands of the learner as well. Don't forget, as for the learners, that is why in stage 1 they want to be medical doctors. Stage 2 they want to be soldiers. Stage 3 they want to be nurse. Stage 4 because their needs will always change. So when you focus on their needs alone and you forget about the society, they will even forget their own needs at certain periods of their lives. The last one is relevance to life. Whatever experience that you select, the learner should be familiar with. It should be something they can easily relate to. You select a song, the student, they don't know how to sing it. You will sing it alone and close the lesson and go home. You want to take the students, the moment we say familiarity, at least there should be some experience. Even if the person has not gone to Kakum before, the moment you mention Kakum National Park, this learner may have heard it on the radio or from friends or from other colleagues, and therefore the learner can easily connect. Anything you want to add?
I think that.
And the last one, which I always have a funny example, is learners' participation. You want students to go for a field trip. You have announced that the field trip is on the 15th of August, 2025. On the 13th, instead of in a class of 35 students, only 2 have paid. It means that the learners will not want to participate. So learner participation, whenever you select a learning experience, you need to ask yourself, would the learners participate in this experience that I have just selected? So your final words. I don't know if there are, I think there was a question on Facebook where we said we would tackle it before we leave.
Yeah.
How can curriculum designers avoid bias or exclusion when selecting content? Miss Miriam, can we be biased?
I don't really know the angle at which how can curriculum designers avoid which kind of bias
or exclusion?
Or what kind of exclusion? Because we have established that naturally it is impossible to study everything in this world. So doing curriculum development, we include certain topics or certain elements and leave out certain things. By leaving out certain things, I don't think the developers are trying to create a bias. But of course, all these things that we have mentioned, they try to look at it and say, okay, let's put this there. This one can be learnt in a different subject or a different level and all that. So it is not like the developers have a deliberate intention that we want to be biased to this group of people in society or that. So that is it. Naturally, we cannot study everything. And I think we did this when we were looking at the components or even the types, curriculum types.
Yes, where the issue of
the
null and all
curriculum,
that. Yeah.
yeah.
So your final words.
All right. So final words. We want to encourage our students. I want to encourage our students, my political science education students, art education.
Your geography.
Geography students. Today, my dear, I'm giving you a shout out. Ambassadors of nature.
Yes.
I tell you, the geographers are the ambassadors of nature. We want to encourage you to try as much as possible to listen to the broadcast or watch it before our next face-to-face interaction. Sometimes you know that when we are getting to the middle, towards the end of the semester like this, you are quite, but be mindful that everything we are doing here, it is for your own good or our own good. So we wish you all the best of luck, and till we meet on this same platform again next week, I think that we have a good week.
All right, thank you, Miss Miriam OGAH. My name is KWAKYE-APAU, and we are coming from the Department of Educational Foundation, School of Education and Lifelong Learning. See you again, God willing, next week.